How to portray a bid to save 7,500 jobs as illegal. That seems to be the sole motivation driving the agenda against Lodidoc's TNA ANN7 deal. The so-called mainstream media is pulling out all possible tricks from their bags to find loopholes on the sale of Oak Bay-owned media entities to Mzwanele Manyi. The latest bid comes from the Times newspaper. The group wants access to the securities register of the Lodidoc's group. While the move appears to be nothing more than a desperate attempt to dig any kind of dirt that may help find grey areas in an above-the-board business transaction. The legal route adopted for snooping seems only logical for media houses that have diligently tried to create smoking guns. The desperation is evident in articles that try to portray the fact that Lodidoc's was a shelf company as something to be suspicious of. It is nothing but an attempt to cook up controversy when there is none. Well, let's understand what is a shelf company in depth. While it is a company that was pre-registered, it has no assets or liabilities and has never conducted any business. It was registered, or rather registered, with the sole purpose of being sold.
The challenges that South Africa has is colonization. When a black person, African in particular, does something, immediately the default position, you've either stolen the money or you've doing something wrong. That's part of how much colonized people are. So this opportunity is an opportunity that we should welcome. I participated in the drafting of the broad-based BE codes. The issues of fronting are a serious issue. It's a crime to front. So anybody that thinks I'm fronting is accusing me of a crime. And that thing carries a 10-year jail sentence. So I can't go wide awake into a situation where I'm actually inviting a 10-year jail sentence.
The way these self-proclaimed independent media houses operate has now become a template. While they create questions around Gupta-owned businesses, often relying on hearsay and unnamed sources. Facts that contradict their carefully constructed narrative of corruption around family businesses are either ignored or distorted. They use the unsubstantiated reports written with a purpose to malign the businesses as proof of controversy and wrongdoing. Some articles are reproduced by multiple media houses to fuel a narrative. A bundle of these articles is then mailed to regulatory bodies or families' business partners to cause maximum damage. ANC has welcomed the sale of ANN7 and TNA to Mzwanele Manyi's company, Lodidoc's. Oak Bay Investments announced on Monday that it sold its TV and newspaper to Manyi for 450 million rand, an amount he will pay back to the family after an agreement to do vendor financing. In a statement issued by the ANC, they have said, and I quote, "As the ANC, we remain committed to preserving the cordial and constructive relationship with the new owners of these media institutions." As declared in the 2017 January 8th statement, the ANC is unwavering in our defense of freedom of the press, and the media, likewise, should report fairly and factually. Well, joining us on the phone line is Adil Nchabeleng from the Transform RSA president. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Adil. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us right here on ANN7. Now, what do you make of the entire flagships which have been raised by certain media houses stating that the sale of ANN7 and TNA to Mzwanele Manyi is actually affronting by this company? What do you make of this?
I think South African media houses are quite disingenuous, and good afternoon to all the viewers. The issue regarding the buying of ANN7 and TNA media is not a new issue. It's actually something that media sales have been happening in South Africa. We've got Mikagiso Media, we've got various media, we've got DSTV, we've got ENCA, and all of the other medias. Remember that these medias are owned by black companies as well as black entities, and no one has ever questioned the ownership, particularly of these media houses. Now we have a single 100% black owner in this case coming in and purchasing a wonderful, incredible media platform like ANN7 and TNA. And suddenly everyone else is singing all other tunes except congratulatory tunes to say, for the first time, we are having a clear indication that radical economic transformation is in play and South Africa is serious, particularly black people who want to own assets in South Africa, whether it is in the media space, it is in the retail space, it is in the industrial space, whatsoever spaces that we are going to occupy strategically to make sure that we own, they are not congratulating. And in this case, Mzwanele Manye has done us extremely proud. We as Transparency are extremely happy on the transaction that has taken place. We have been saying that there must be a change in ownership, there must be a change in the pattern of ownership in South Africa, and certain leverage ownership by black people must be compulsory and mandatory. And in this case, they have not just done 100% acquisition, they've even given management, and hopefully the employees will be included in the transaction. So we, similarly to the call that was made by the ANC, we congratulate currently Docs on having acquired this particular asset.
And Adil, do you think that the suspicion, raised by these certain media houses on this entire sale of TNA and ANN7 to Mzwanele Manye, who happens to be a black businessman, is purely based on racial tensions in South Africa and only wanting to keep the media on the ownership of the minority in this country?
Remember, ownership of media is almost literally to a crime. Anyone who owns media in South Africa will be vilified, will actually be given a status of somebody who is either corrupt or has actually involved himself into corrupt activities. One, because they own a very strategic lever of communication, particularly mass communication. So I don't expect that Mzwanele Manye will have an easy time during the acquisition period and having bought a very important strategic asset like ANN7 and TNA. The South African media sector is highly biased and highly racial. Not only that, we have economic racism in South Africa that continuously look down on black people who are buying strategic assets and trying to free and reverse the apartheid order that used to say that black people cannot own anything. Remember, in the apartheid days, you were forbidden to even own a bottle store. You were even given just a license. You were not a manufacturer. You were not even given the opportunities. So today, we are seeing a new generation of black owners coming into the sector, starting to play a vital role in actually changing the patterns of ownership. And what is the first crime? We are reminded of apartheid. We are taken back to the apartheid days where we are told that blacks must not own anything. And this is a call from Transformer SA point of view that we say we must deal very deliberately with this kind of tendencies and this thinking that always shuts down black people into the gutters of history, and we are always left into the back burner of whatever it is that is economically. Economic racism is a reality in South Africa. You must not forget that. So the attack on Mzwanele Manye is an economic attack. It has nothing to do with the fact that he happens to be black. It has to do with the fact that all other black people are seen in the same space. What makes him different is because he has done the most unthinkable, taking a full ownership of a media entity and giving a clear statement that it is possible for black people to own and take on control and become economic drivers within a South African context and environment.
Well, Mr. Nchabeleng, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us this afternoon right here on ANN7. That was Adil Nchabeleng from the Transform SA president. Also joining us on the phone line to unpack further details on this is Musire Tsiane, the South African Liberty Foundation. A very good afternoon to you, Tsiane. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon right here on ANN7. While the sale of TNA and ANN7 to Mzwanele Manye by the Gupta family seems to be rattling quite a number of feathers in the media space, why do you think that this is actually coming up at this time and towards this entire particular sale?
Well, it is of no doubt that at this moment in time, South is over the moon, is excited, and want to congratulate first this big transaction that has occurred, and also the big move that we find South Africa to be moving towards a radical economic transformation. Yes, indeed, you would have people who would oppose to this in their own sphere. In general, I would think back in the days as far as the leadership of Thabo Mbeki and Nelson Mandela, when you obtained our freedom, as far back as then, there was a concerted effort to make sure that there's going to be a change of mindset of South Africans, that they forget their past and that they forget that those that once ruled them by force, by fear, by military bases, by racial discrimination, are forgotten about their sins, and we tried to also see the liberation as an enemy. It was that racial institutional thinking that happened long time ago, and the apartheid mechanism and system wanted to make sure that we forget who we are, where we come from, and that you see the ANC as an enemy that is not going to deliver us. Unfortunately, some people in the Western Cape that you are not the liberator. That's why they voted the ANC back. But to your question, which is more specific, why would anybody have a problem with this? People will have a problem with it because it's going to give South Africans, a black South African, and a chance to own media, also to give South Africans, particularly all South Africans in general, a different view of what the media is all about. This is nothing else. The efforts have been taken a lot during this time of President Zuma to say that Zuma and the Guptas are corrupt. So anything else that has to do with ANN7 is related to corruption. Do not watch that news media. Rather, look at different news. Go and look at other news media, but not this one. Why did people want to make sure that you do not watch AN7? Is because they didn't want people to have a different view. They didn't want people to be fed with different opinions. They just wanted them to be feeling only one media aspect, to be informed that only in South Africa you'll have one voice, and that in general there is no different opinion, there is no different views. People have to be fed with all facts and let them for themselves. Now that's why that effort has been there. The effort has also got to do to make sure that ANC has got to lose power the way it is. Make sure that you show ANC as corrupt, you show its leadership as corrupt all the time, only at one-sided sector. But here at AN7, new leadership that is incoming, people are rest assured that they're going to have a different opinion, different view, and they will judge for themselves.
And now, Mr. Tsiane, earlier on, we also spoke to the Transform RSA president, Mr. Adon Chabeleng, and he actually described this entire move by these different media houses as an economic attack, as this can be seen as a step towards transforming the media space. What are your sentiments on that? Do you think that this is really an economic attack?
Yes, it is. It has not only been this economic attack, it has also been shown earlier on when the Minister of Minerals wanted to change, in particular, and say, I'll come up with a mining charter that is going to give black people 30%, just a mere 30%. There was an overall reaction from your mining sector who wanted to oppose that. This is typical South Africans. If anybody is living in this false dream land that says that no, all is well in South Africa, it's not true. Those that have captured South Africa want to maintain the status quo as it is. They don't want any change. And no one is saying that you want to radically transform this economy by chasing people away. You say include those that you have excluded before. Let them participate. I don't expect anybody to have a different opinion about this. I don't expect people to be objective or show objections to this intake of black people coming into the media space. Never before have black people participated in the media space. For once, there is only one person who goes in there and say, I'm the face of that change. There is suddenly people who are objecting to it. It tells you that this road for our liberation is indeed a long one. We are on a very, very strong march. It is as if we were back in 1994. For the first time, you have a particular individual, Mzwanele in this instance, who moving into the media sector. But there is objection. Why would people object that? Why would they not accommodate it, welcome with warm hands and say South Africa is moving now towards a better land, and that indeed black people are now being given a space into the media sector? But you would have, as expected, of course, this does not come as a surprise. One must indicate that you would expect those that have been in charge of the economy, that they will show this resistance, that they would refuse this radical economy. They'll come with all kinds of theories that Mzwanele is
Well, Mr. Tsiane, I indeed do hear you, but unfortunately I will have to leave it over there at this moment. But thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us this afternoon right here on ANN7. That was Mosire Tsiane from the South African Liberty Foundation, unpacking more details on his reaction towards the bid by many media houses in the country who are portraying the entire move, or rather the sale of TNA and ANN7 to Mzwanele Manyi, as just a front and a legal bid.